But we were already negative during the tax season, and we weren't going to be cash flow positive until at least the next January. So we're facing February 1st, and we're gushing. All of our cash is gone. Right. So what we had to make, one of the toughest decisions of my life is we had to go to Montgomery Ward and shut down most of the locations.
Welcome to Through the Dip, the show about what it's really like to be an entrepreneur and the life lessons learned from navigating a company through the dip. My name is Steven Souter, and before we get to today's show, this episode is brought to you by Hustlefish. If you're wasting your time wrestling with your website, you know how frustrating little bugs and updates can be. Your focus should be on your business, not babysitting your website. Hustlefish offers website support that frees you up to do what only you can do. Head over to throughthedip.com/web support and let us take it off your plate. Now, I traveled out to Norfolk, Virginia to chat with John Hewitt, the founder of Jackson Hewitt and Liberty Tax Services. It all started for him in 1982 when John bought 6 tax offices from Mel Jackson's widow, just 6, and he had one single goal: to outgrow H&R Block. At that time, H&R Block had 9,000 locations, and John wanted 9,001. Over the years, he clawed his way forward, raised money, and made smart hires. In 1988, it looked like the rocket was finally ready to launch. He landed a huge deal and acquired the rights to launch his tax service at every Montgomery Ward department store. But what he didn't realize was that he just inherited a full-blown rebellion. The employees hadn't been paid the year before and came back angry, or some not at all. Some actively sabotaged him by standing at the door, steering customers away. Within weeks, payroll was bleeding and the dream was on fire. What followed was one of John's darkest chapters. He didn't fold, he dug deep, he fought to salvage what he could, and he kept his eyes on the same outrageous goal. John went on to build Jackson Hewitt into a publicly traded company, then started Liberty Tax and did it again, and now he's doing it a third time with Loyalty Brands. This one's about obsession, about faith in the long game, and about what happens when you set a goal so big it pulls you through the fire.
We were growing, and I happened to raise some money in 1988 to expand. I hired 2 people that had worked with me at H&R Block as president and vice president of the company to come in and assist me. And I was approached, I thought fortuitously, in October of 1988 to acquire the Montgomery Ward contract and acquire the second largest company.
So you weren't looking to acquire that contract. They came and said, hey, we have this, we don't want to run this anymore. Would you like to buy this?
They came to us. And so it seemed like a ideal time. I had just raised some money. I had just got 2 great people. Now we had been number 3 taxpayer in the country. Now, if we acquired it, we would be number 2. And we would double our locations because there was almost 200 Montgomery Ward locations.
Wow.
So we set about, and we had a great deal where we only had to pay, I don't remember the exact amount, but we only had to pay a small down payment, and we were going to pay the balance out over a few years, and that would enable us to pay for it out of cash flow. So we didn't, and the cost was very low in terms of that. Now, at the same time, we were slightly envious of this H&R Block Sears relationship. So most of your listeners or viewers probably are familiar with Montgomery Ward. But Montgomery Ward was kind of a baby Sears.
Okay.
And they were like kind of a Kmart to a Walmart. I mean, they were, but they were Sears copycat.
Yeah.
And H&R Block had this great relationship with Sears, where Sears used to be, back then, Sears was, a Fortune 50 company.
Yeah, it was like the place.
It was the place. Walmart had only a few hundred stores. They were sort of a 5 and dime, 10-cent store. They weren't anywhere near the Walmart they are today. In fact, I visited at Walmart back then. They had a Walton 5 and 10 cent store. It was the first Walmart in all of the country. It's in downtown Bentonville, Arkansas. The sign's still up that says Walmart. It says Walmart 5 and 10 cent store. So we were envious of that relationship. They were averaging in the Sears stores, H&R
Mhm.
Block, almost as much as they were in their storefront. So it
Oh,
was
really?
very successful for H&R Block, and it was a way for us to expand. And there was 300 or 400 Montgomery wards, and they were only in about 2/3 of them, or a little over half. So that gave us a future expansion to be able to go into these inexpensive locations for just the tax. Because obviously one of the negatives in the tax industry is you make all your money in 3 months
Yeah.
and you're paying rent for 12 months.
Yeah.
But when you're in a Sears store or a Walmart store, or now Jackson Hewitt's now in Walmart, or a Montgomery Ward, you only pay rent during that short period of time. So it saves a lot of, not just the rent, but it saves the payroll,
Yeah.
because you have payroll year round when you have stores that are you're paying rent in all year long. So it seemed like a great opportunity, and we didn't do, looking back, we didn't do the proper due diligence to find out why they were selling and what adversity we face.
Mhm.
So we acquired the locations, and then the tax season hit, and it was a disaster.
And why was it a disaster? Like, when the tax season hit, like,
What what
what
had,
what happened?
what had happened is the previous season, the company had run close to bankruptcy, and they uh, paid their employees late. And then when they hit towards the end of the season, they didn't pay them at all. And so the employees were just angry, and weren't going to return, and they hadn't been paid, and they were so angry that many of them competed with the the existing location that we put in the office. So not only did we not have employees when we went in, we expected to have mostly repeat employees from the year before. Well, most of them didn't come back because they hadn't been paid, and some of them, again, were competing. We had even 2 stores where the former manager of the location would come into the location and see customers coming in and guide them out of the store and do their tax returns separately. So, I mean,
So they're actively working against you and moving
r
customers because they're mad because they didn't get what they were owed.
and they had their customer list.
Yeah.
So they had at least the name and address and phone number of the customers, and sometimes they had a copy of the tax return of the customer. So they had taken copies of tax returns. So they had everything easily to compete with us. Plus, they had the relationship with the customer, and tax customers are more loyal to the preparer
Hmm.
than to the firm that does the tax return. Right? They're a lot more. If someone goes into an H&R Block, for example, they're loyal to John Hewitt, not H&R Block.
Because the
That's
person that's sitting across the table from you looking at your taxes, you're being open and vulnerable with
right.
the
It's the same as someone that does your hair,
yeah.
or your doctor, or your dentist, or you have a relationship with that person. And if that person moves, your attorney, you're going to typically move with that person.
How quickly did you realize that things were going south after you struck the deal to take over all these locations?
As soon as we began reaching out to the employees, I mean, we closed this deal, call it about November 1st. And within a few weeks, we were reaching out to the employees and inviting them back. And it wasn't obvious in the first few weeks that we were ignored, and we didn't really get a sense until it was Christmas time, maybe,
Yeah.
that we got a sense
Right
we're
before
in
tax
trouble.
time is about
We're in
ready to
trouble. We
start.
got well back then we knew we were having trouble hiring. We didn't know we were going to get competed with.
Mm.
Right? That we didn't know until tax season came. And then when we contacted the customers and invited them back, we found out that some of the customers were being in most of the stores, or many, if not most, were being solicited by the former taxpayers who weren't helping us. They were the opposite.
Yeah. Why didn't they come back to work if you were a brand new company? Like, couldn't you say like, "Hey, we're not the same people"?
It's hard to explain. I mean, it's hard to tell some of that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in 35 states, and um, in we had about 170 locations in probably 65 cities. So how do you reach them all? And you can't. It's hard to make that plead that case over the telephone. Back
Mhm.
then, they didn't have cell phones, for example,
Yeah.
right? So and they didn't have email.
Yeah.
And it was a different world, right? So it was not easy to get in touch with people.
Yeah.
And then you had to have a sincere conversation, and then they had to believe you. And now they've now it's call it December, and they've been angry since the previous April. So they've been angry, and they've changed mentally. They've snapped
Mhm.
8 months ago, and you're trying to walk them off the ledge. It's too late. They jumped off that ledge,
Yeah.
right? So you didn't get a chance to. If I had a chance to talk to them in April or May, I might have got them off the ledge and said and convinced them. But we didn't get a hold of them till they had already mentally snapped.
Yeah. Did it change your model of franchising at all? Like, were those franchise locations and did those people that worked there, like, did they, like, own that franchise in that Montgomery ward? Or how was that deal with, workers there?
Unfortunately, they were mostly company stores because we didn't have time
Yeah.
to bring in new franchisees between the time we acquired it, call it November 1st and in January. We didn't have enough time to find buyers. 80% of them were company locations.
Yeah.
So we took the hit both from a management point of view and a financial blow.
So what do you do when you, after you've acquired this company, things are not going in the right direction? Like, how do you start fixing that problem, which seems like is a huge problem?
It was by February 1st, we knew that if we continued, we would go bankrupt. So we were gushing so much money in payroll
Mm.
without the enough without enough income in the stores. I mean, usually always in the tax business, you have this negative cash flow from April 15th until the next January,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, you're negative with rents and payroll and utilities and all the expenses. But we were already negative during the tax season, and we weren't gonna be cash flow positive until at least the next January. So we're facing February 1st, and we're gushing all of our cash is gone,
Yeah.
right? So what we had to make one of the toughest decisions of my life is we had to go to Montgomery Ward and shut down most of the locations. So we went from 170 down to 50.
Just to try to get payroll off the books and stop
Just
bleeding the money.
just got rid of all the stores that were losing money
Mhm.
and kept only the ones that were cash flow positive. So
How'd that conversation go with Malcolm Ward?
it was well, first of all, we did it by phone, and they said, "You come in there and talk to us." Right,
Yeah.
right. And now and then we wanted that long-term relationship. We wanted to have a long-term
Yeah.
relationship, but we had destroyed our relationship. They hadn't seen any signs, if any signs of the rebellion that had been going on in their stores the previous season. So they were happy with their long-term relationship that they had just left. So we had gone there in November or October and convinced them that and told them, we're great. We're going to not only are we going to continue, we're going to do it even better. We're going to expand. We're going to grow. We're John Hewitt and Bill Birchmeyer and Esther Gould. I mean, we're big. We're important. We're good,
Yeah.
right? We're not those. So now boy, did we get our head handed to us in a platter. And what they accused us of is you didn't want all these stores. You only wanted these plums that you're keeping. You're keeping all the
Mhm.
good ones and not paying us rent on these other 100 locations. So we had to beg for forgiveness and had to prove to them and get them to believe that we were going to turn it around the next year and start going in the right direction. And so that was it was such a black period in my life. Plus, at the same time, no, I'm facing 11 months of facing bankruptcy going forward for 11 months.
Yeah,
The next 11 months.
because you're gonna lose money. And
Right. Oh yeah, we had already lost it. I mean, we had when the tax season comes, you spend your money on advertising and payroll, and then if they don't, it's like you're a farmer. I mean, to me, it's sort of like a farmer harvesting, right? You plant your field, and then you harvest,
Mm-hmm.
but you have so much money in it, right?
Yeah.
In the seeding and the watering and the plowing and you put all your money in, and then if the harvest doesn't come, or you don't get enough money from the harvest, then how do you get money to plant seeds and water and for the next year?
Yeah.
And so our harvest was way beyond, I mean, just sparse. So it was a very black period. I've had three really bad tax seasons in my career, and what was the first of them.
Yeah. What did it feel like personally, like trying to get up and go to work every day and like things just kind of feeling like I'm sure they're falling apart?
The I'm always I always have Plan B, and the most important attribute of success is perseverance.
Mm.
And so I I was never going to quit. I was always thinking of Plan B, Plan C, Plan if this happens. I'm a life master chess player, and I started when I was 9 years old. So I'm always planning ahead. And so most of my time was I'm planning contingencies. If this happens and this happens and this happens. There was no, even if we lost the Montgomery Ward contract and they sued us, I mean, I was not going to go out of business. I was just going to get smaller before I got bigger again. So I had to, that's what I was facing. I never think of quitting.
Hmm.
I think of, okay, this is the situation I'm in. How do I get from here to where I want to go?
Yeah.
Which still is 9,001 offices.
Yeah.
I still thinking I have to get to 9,001 offices. This is a blip in that journey, but I'm not changing my goal or changing my direction to move forward towards that goal.
When you're talking about never giving up and perseverance, do you think that there are points where one should give up and should just throw in the towel and try something completely different? Or do you think that giving up is never a good option?
No, I think sometimes you're going in the wrong direction. I mean, with your life, or um, let's say I mean, some obvious. Let's say that in the early 1900s, you're in the buggy whip business,
Mm-hmm.
and that you make buggy whips, right? And you see the industry changing as less buggies are being bought in because they're buying cars now.
Yeah.
So you're a fool if you don't see the writing on the wall. So there are times when conditions change
Mm-hmm.
that you have to stop and go in another direction.
Yeah.
So as long as there's a future is your goal, and it's still in the cards.
Mm-hmm.
Still, nothing has changed. Nothing had changed in the industry. There's still 9,000 H&R blocks, and the second largest only had 300, and that was us. There's always room for another player. If that doesn't change,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those circumstances didn't change. There was going to be a tax preparation industry. There was room for another player. So you never quit under those
Yeah.
circumstances.
Like you knew success would be possible if you could just figure out how to keep moving forward.
Someone was going to do it,
Yeah.
right? There was someone was going to be a strong number two in the income tax market. So it could be us. Could it be us? Well, actually, it was us, because today Jackson Hewitt has 6,000 locations, and it became $1 billion company.
Wow.
So it could happen. But if the industry had changed dramatically in some way, then you have to change your direction for sure.
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
most of the time, perseverance is key.
What was it like with, like, handling that level of stress and, like, during that dark time, like, trying to like, you're the leader of this company, and trying to, like, forge a way through that and keep everyone motivated and moving forward.
Well, you have to keep your head up because the morale and the culture starts at the top. I couldn't have a bad day. I couldn't be down in the dumps because the leader is the sets the level of enthusiasm and attitude and
Mhm.
culture. And so I always had to have a positive face. And I always had, and fortunately I've lived that kind of life. I've been so blessed that and I'm so appreciative of all the blessings I've had in my life that I'm always happy anyway. Even if I'm facing the most difficult path and I can't see how to get through the next day or the next hour. I'm always I go to sleep happy every night, and I wake up happy every morning. In between, I'm normally aggravated, but I go to sleep happy and I wake up happy because I know that I'm so grateful to God that I don't have any. If God had come to me and said, "Well, you're gonna we're gonna destroy your company. You're gonna make this foolish mistake," and I can either do that or I'll let it go well, but you have to lose one of your children.
Mhm.
What would I say? Take the company. Kill me. Or one of your children has to be crippled,
Mhm.
or you have to be blind. You have to put things in perspective,
Yeah.
right? It's God, family, and then business. It's not the catch-all, end-all. You have to have the proper perspective in life, and it wasn't the end of the world,
Yeah.
right? So as long as you can come at it from that vantage point, and that you understand that what's the most important part of life, then a business calamity is just a business calamity.
So back like, getting back to the Montgomery Ward, story, you closed down branches, and did you start turning a profit then, or was the whole year kind of a loss from there out?
We s- we stopped losing money and we made a little money from then until the end of the tax season. But then we faced those bleak
Yeah.
period from April 16th until the next January. So where we weren't, we were losing money every day, and we were um, one of the decisions we had to make as we were failing in January is we were spending a lot of money on advertising and not getting repaid with customers. So should we advertise more? But we owed our advertising company, I forget, 100 or $200,000, and we had to go to them and say we can't pay it. And of course, they went crazy because they had the advertising company would pay a TV station, and the TV went and they were placing the ad, and they had to pay the TV station, but I wasn't paying the advertising agent
Yeah.
because I was like on 30 days or something. So they went crazy and they fought us, and so they threatened to sue us. But we made everyone whole. Made Montgomery whole. We made the advertising company whole. We um, paid all of our bills eventually. I had to go in when we were facing the May through June or through December. We said we're cutting almost everyone's pay 50%.
Wow.
So you're making 30,000 a year, you're making 15,000. You're making 50,000 a year, you're making 25,000.
Mhm.
And so we had to go and just tighten our belts and faced with all kinds of adversity, with a, only a bleak future to look forward to.
Was it hard to keep the energy positive and people's spirits up during that time?
I've been in my career, I have 56 years. I've had like 52 or 53 great years where when you're growing, it's easy to have good morale and good
Mhm.
spirit. But boy, when you're shrinking, there's nothing you can do to stop it. So again, I was always positive. I always painted a picture of what next year's going to look like, and we're going to come back from this, and always with positive attitude. It's there was not a lot of joy in what was it, Mudville, when Casey struck out, John Hewitt struck out. There wasn't a lot of joy in Mudville.
As you said that there was, 3 kind of dark years in your tax, tenure or whatever, like, and see, there were 3 black tax seasons?
Yes.
Yeah. So in those 3 black tax seasons, did, this first one help you deal with those other 2? Like, having gone through this, what did you learn there that helps you prepare you for those other ones?
Absolutely. We were never as reckless to be all in as we had that tax season. We always had backup plans, contingency plans, and I learned that never test something on a national basis. If you're going to do something like that, do it on a regional test. Never to do it. So we never were faced with everything on the line that we could lose everything in if something went wrong virtually. So you can't plan for everything. You can't, for example, you can't plan for a nuclear war.
Mhm.
I mean, if a nuclear war happens during tax season, what are you going to do? I mean, you don't spend any time worrying about it. But we were planning for anything that was reasonably close to that. So we kept money in the bank. We hired better. We didn't take chances nationally. We adjusted our behavior to make sure that didn't happen again.
Yeah. How would a deal like that look if you weren't trying to do it nationally? Like, if you were trying to apply this principle of, like, test it a little bit smaller?
Well, I would have instead of going with opening 170 stores, and I would have said, okay, we can do 70 stores.
Mm.
All
Yeah.
right. We can those are dangerous. Those other 100 locations are dangerous because of potential blip and a performance. And so we would have taken less store. We would have gone to them and said, we will acquire it. And but Montgomery Ward has to agree that we're only going to go with these locations
Mhm.
that were bigger and safer and closer together.
Yeah.
And so there's not one in nowhere America of 500 miles from anywhere how do you staff it? How do you
Yeah.
so we would have done it in a more thoughtful way. In 1993, by then we were back in 300 Montgomery Ward stores, and we were up to about 800 locations, and we decided that we either were going to be in Walmart or Kmart.
Mm.
And back then, Kmart wasn't the Kmart of today. They were starting to get beat up by Walmart, but they were still successful. And it wasn't clear that it was going to be a total day and night between the two.
Yeah.
They both had about between 1,500 and 2,000 stores, and Kmart hadn't started closing stores. So we wanted to be in Walmart, but we went and visited. So we made a goal as a company within 3 years to be in either Walmart or Kmart against H&R Block and Sears,
Mhm.
right? And now there were more Walmarts and Kmarts than Sears. So back in '88 when we started, there was more Sears than I think Walmart and Kmart combined. But by 5 years later, there were more Kmarts and Walmarts than Sears. So made that goal. So we went out and we were within 3 years. We were in Walmart, and both us and Block were in Walmart. Within 5 years, Walmart kicked out Block, and today Jackson Hewitt is the only tax company that's in Walmart, United States. We're in my company, ATAX, is in Walmart, Puerto Rico, and H&R Block's in Walmart, Canada. But in the United States, we got exclusive. So about half of their 6,000 locations at Jackson Hewitt today in 2025 are in Walmart.
Wow. That's amazing. How did you eventually decide to sell Jackson Hewitt? If you wanted to get to this 9,001 locations, why not keep trying to get to that 9,001?
Well, that brings up my second black period, my second horrible tax hit. And in 1995, the IRS, the only in 56 years, the IRS made a horrible mistake, programming mistake that almost destroyed the industry for that tax hit. In fact, it was so bad that, for example, Tom Block, the son of founder Henry Block, had H&R Block stands for Henry and Richard Block.
Mm.
Richard got sick and Henry built the company. Tom Block, his son, now was CEO. He left on April 9th of 1995. He resigned from the company because the IRS had, so it would take a long time to explain it as to what they did. But essentially, simplistically, most of our customers want their refunds and they want them fast.
Yeah.
And the IRS made a programming mistake, and they were going to hold some returns separately and check them manually
Mm-hmm.
before they released the refunds. And if they did that, they were going to hold them for 10 weeks. So this customer who had been coming in January and getting the refund in a few days
Mm-hmm.
was told that it's going to be 10 weeks. And not only that, but the customers were being lent money,
Yeah.
and the money was coming out of that refund. Now, the refund back then was transmitted electronically from the IRS to the bank, so the customer got paid. And our payment for doing the tax return was out of that refund. So you got a $3,000 refund. The tax payment and the fee of the bank was $200. You get a check for $2,800. The bank would print that. They would send us our tax prep fee, and they would take their $35 financing fee to do the transaction. Well, the IRS didn't have that programmed, so when they held it for 10 weeks, they mailed the money to the customer. So they mailed the whole 3,000. So you can imagine how many came in 10 weeks later when they got their 3,000 to pay us our tax prep fee.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone
Pay-
did.
pay- No, I mean, almost zero. So, and they made a mistake. The biggest mistake wasn't just that they had only were intended to hold back like 0.3% of the customers to check for fraud. They held 30%. So it was like millions of people. And people would come into our offices, and the IRS didn't know internally that they were screwing up. So they didn't tell anyone. So the taxpayer wouldn't get his money. He'd expect it. And we didn't know it until Black Friday, whatever it was, February 5th of 1995. So we had told all these people, you're going to get your money by Friday. And on Black Friday, we found out when we weren't paid. And because the IRS pays the bank once a week.
Mm.
And so the first big payment was due on February 5th. And the customers came in or called the IRS. They said, we're not doing that. They have your money. And so we had bomb threats. We had guns. We had fistfights in the offices.
Man.
And one guy, one of my favorite franchisees in Salisbury, Maryland, a guy came in a trench coat and said, you're going to give me my money. And he said, I don't have your money. Well, we're going to go to the bank and you're going to get me my money. And it was like $3,000. Now, of course, we know who he was. He went to jail, but that guy left the business because he said, I'm not willing to risk my life.
Yeah.
But a guy came in with a shotgun and a trench coat and made him drive him to his bank and get $3,000. So it almost destroyed the industry. And now the company we were a public company, and we were decimated again because our taxpayers, our franchise didn't get paid. So they didn't pay us our royalties. And we were financing. We had a deal with several banks where we were financing part of the loans. And so we had all this money out. And so again, we almost went bankrupt, only been almost bankrupt twice. And my venture capitalist at the time decided to try to steal the company. So it was like $2.25 a share. So in that fight, I had to give up control of the company, and they sold it. Now, the good news is he didn't get control, and we sold it at $68 a share
Wow,
instead of $2. And
that's a big difference.
within less than 2 years, we got $68 a share. He was trying to take the company at $2.25 a share. So we got well paid, $483 million, right? But the bad news is I lost my company.
Yeah. So, uh, was it was he able to try to buy it at $2, just a little over $2 a share because the company was in such a rough state because of this screw up by the IRS?
Yeah, the stock went from 17 down to
Yeah.
$2.25.
Wow. And so did you go after individuals then to try to get them to pay the check that the IRS mailed them?
Well, what happened is that the great news is that um, the customers tend to always want their money fast.
Mhm.
And so they have to go next year, they have to go to a bank. And even if they came into us, we're going to get our money that they owed us last year,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And the banks had a cross collection phrase in the agreement. So if they came into H&R Block, pretend it was H&R Block Bank and Jackson Hewitt Bank. If they had gone to Block last year and came to Jackson Hewitt, then our bank would collect the tax fees from the previous year and the bank fee from the previous year, and then pay us. So the next year was an incredible and the best year ever in my life
Yeah.
because we got paid all the money that we had put out the previous year. So it was just like cha-ching, cha-ching. It was a gold mine. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just so we didn't have to go to the customers because if they ever came in the rest of their lives, or at least in the next few years, that the bank would cross collect and
Mhm.
pay it. So we got paid so we got paid. It was just that typically a year or two later.
Wow. So, but you you had to float the loan though, because that's people for a
Exactly,
long time,
exactly,
but
right.
yeah.
And part of the what I floated is losing my company.
Yeah. Yeah. Did that make you angry at all? Like
You know,
having
again, I've always, if you met me any day in the last 50 years, you would see the same attitude, the same positive spirit. And people would say that to you, were you angry? Were you upset? And you lost your baby. I mean,
yeah.
you built this and there's 6,000 locations and it has your name on it, right? Aren't you upset? And again, I said, if God came to me and said, I'm going to take your company or take your son, what would I say? Take the company.
Yeah.
It's you have to put it in perspective. It's not so bad. And actually, in a way, Liberty Tax, I went right out and started Liberty Tax, and I started in Canada to avoid my non-compete because Jackson Hewitt wasn't in Canada, and it became bigger faster than Jackson Hewitt.
Wow.
And it grew 4,000 locations in 12 years, top 10 fastest growing ever, way faster than I grew Jackson Hewitt. I built a $500 million company in 12 years instead of at Jackson Hewitt. It took 15 years,
Yeah.
but I did it at 12 years at Liberty.
Do you think that's because you could just pull on from your experience of building Jackson Hewitt that you just were like, you knew the playbooks, you knew how to get this done?
Exactly. If you can build something from scratch, like you're building a company, and then sell for almost 500 million,
Mhm.
and you've had 15 years experience. If you don't do it better the second and get to start over again, same exact industry. If you don't do it better the second time, you're an idiot,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you need to learn from all the mistakes that you made over those 15 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was mostly due to my experience, but also I had over 100 people that had worked with me at Jackson Hewitt came over to Liberty Tax.
Wow.
So I had great people that knew me, and I didn't have to go wonder how they're going to do because they worked for me before.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. So catch me up to where you are now. So you've done Jackson Hewitt, you've done Liberty Tax, but now you're working on loyalty brands.
Yeah, same thing. I built up Liberty Tax to a $500 million public company, sold my stock, and now we have, unlike the past where we just had one brand each time, we have 8 different franchisors, and we have 3 different focuses. One, tax. This is my 56th tax season, so that's my bread and butter. Secondly is construction, led by our roofing and solar and siding. But the most exciting, believe it or not, is pets. And we have 3 pet companies. The really exciting one is called Zoom and Groomin'. It's mobile pet grooming. And in January Entrepreneur came out last month. We're number 1 in all of mobile grooming already in 3 years. We're in the fastest growing of any pet company, franchisor in the country. And out of 4,000 franchisors in the country, we're 31st top growing company of all brands, of all industries. So we're in the top 1% fastest growing of all industries. That's what I was, though, I've done that before with both Jackson Hewitt and Liberty, but now I'm doing it again. And so I'm the only one that's founded 2 of the top 100 retail chains in the country. And Zoom and Groom is going to be number 3. And we'll have 3,000 vans in 5 years.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really cool. Why pets? Why Zoom and Groom?
When we left and sold Liberty Tax, we looked at other industries. I had a non-compete for a couple of years, so we were looking at other industries, and we said, what industries are growing? And the 2 that come up that you can franchise, there has to be a because I'm a franchise guy. I call myself fondly the great-grandfather of franchising now. Used to be the great-grandfather of income tax, but now I've been in franchising 56 years, and all my peers are, the Henry Blocks and the Ray Krocs of McDonald and Dave from Wendy's and Colonel. They're all dead, right? And even Fred DeLuca from Subway, number 1 franchisor in the world. So I've outlived the rest of my peers that built huge top 100 companies. And so I wanted to be in franchising, and the 2 things that came to mind were senior care and pets. That pets just began, really took off about just before, at the time of COVID. It's hard to tell just before COVID. There's now a trend over the last at least 5 to 10 years, a humanization of pets. I mean, people have always loved their pets, but now they're crazy about it. In fact, there are many 20, 30, 40-year-olds that have pets instead of children.
Yeah.
And they put off having children for pets. And even when polled, the parents that have both pets and children, 2/3 of them like the pet better. Right? So it's just it's growing by double digits.
That's amazing.
And people just love their pets. So we have a company that is over all of our pet companies called Everything Pet. We want to be everything pet.
Nice. That's cool. What are you looking forward to the most?
Every time we reach another milestone with Zoom and Grooming, it just feels good, right? And our mission statement is having fun, improving lives, and our franchisees they love it, and I think out of our hundreds of franchisees at Zoom and Grooming, I think all but 1 own dogs. I mean, everyone's a pet lover. It's a feel good. It's a feel good business, right? Doing taxes is most people think of going to have your tax return done as like going to the dentist. But boy, when we pull up our van in and pick up that pet and bring him into the van, and the pets look forward to it, the pet parents look forward to it, and we're treated like family. They hug us, and our groomers are treated like family. It's all feel good situation.
Last question. It's tax season. I gotta ask, do you do your own taxes?
On October 15th each year, I do 1 tax return, and I've been doing that for yes.
That's cool.
That's the only my companies have done 100 million tax returns at A-Tax and Jackson Hewitt and Liberty and not H&R Block, but 100 million tax returns that I've founded, and I only do 1 each year.
Just do yours.
Right.
That's great. Awesome, John. Really appreciate having you on our podcast here and just sharing your wisdom and your experience. It means a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to today's episode. That was John Hewitt's story of The Dip. I'll drop the links for everything we chatted about in the show notes. We release episodes twice a month, so make sure to subscribe or follow wherever you're listening to this. But what would really mean the world to me is if you would head over to throughthedip.com and sign up for our newsletter. I seriously get this little ping on my phone every time someone subscribes, and it completely makes my day. I'll catch you in 2 weeks.